Why does the black man serve the white man? Why does everything the black man do benefit the white man? Why does the black man say freedom is doing what I want to do? And why is it that everything he wants to do enriches the European?
Welcome to the desert of the real.
You brothers were talking about this earlier, and this was another thing that I wanted to add. You were talking about how the different ethnicities, and I think, if my memory serves me correct, this was alluding to the Filipinos, how they're able to go back to, where they're from, just to visit. And you hear Africans talk about it. You hear French people talk about it. You hear Germans talk about it. You hear Irish talk about it. You hear everybody talk about it. But when we talk about it, it's like there's a disconnect. And the disconnect is, and you guys had alluded to this earlier, was that Africa is so freaking tribal. And there's some real disadvantages to that, being tribal. Because it's hard to sit down and know that you have differences, but at the same time, come to an agreement. And that's the biggest problem that we have as black people, is that we don't understand the concept of the fact that we don't agree on the same shit, but we can sit down and talk about what's best for us as a group and move forward knowing we don't agree on everything.
Right.
But we still going to do that business. But on the side of that, I'm going to do what I want to do. You do what you want to do. And like in The Godfather, Marlon Brando says, as long as your business doesn't conflict with mine, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, personally, and I want to hear Thomas's opinion on this. The Chinese and the Japanese basically had blood between them. War, right? Spilled war. Japanese invaded China. This, that, and the other thing. But do you know the Chinese and the Japanese do $300 billion a year worth of business together across the Sea of Japan? Somehow they may hate each other. They have this, but they found that China has things we need, Japan has things we need. So they basically help each other develop, and they basically, between China and Japan, they developed Asia.
That's true. Well, I think there's one overarching theme, and I think the gentleman that called it, I wasn't Holip, by the way.
Yo, what's up?
When we talk about this country, I think we've pretty much seen that the experiment of a heterogeneous society has failed. And what I mean is, because Caucasians are xenophobic, you cannot really have a heterogeneous society, meaning quote-unquote diversity. The gentleman who called it earlier talked about liking diversity, but that's just a way of ameliorating your feelings and the disconnect that you have, that you really don't have a choice in the matter. So
you have no choice to be in a diverse community, because you ain't got nothing else to go thing. It's like asking a lion who's in a kid, how does he like his life at the zoo? He ain't no choice, Now,
here's the interesting thing. When you look at countries that are homogeneous, when you look at Japan, when you look at Iceland, you look at places where they have homogeneous societies, they don't have problems. If you go over to, like, Switzerland, they were talking about, and I think, remember that article where they were talking about having a monthly stipend given to people to not force them to work? So in a homogeneous society, you can have that discussion because people have a collective consciousness and they have cultural cohesion to not feel like someone is taking away from them. So you can have a discussion, just like in Japan. Japan is a highly industrialized, modernized economy, but their CEOs don't make 550 times what the average employee makes. Their CEOs make an average maybe about 50 to 100 times. And in times of recession, rather than lay someone off, what they'll do is everyone takes a reduction in pay.
Yep.
So they're
streamline management. And they streamline management too.
Yeah. Well, but like I said, they usually what they'll do is they won't lay people off. Everyone will share in law at the downside, and that's why their unemployment remains about 3, maybe 4%. They're usually at full employment all the time. So, if anything, there's more of an argument, and it's just human nature that people attract who they have similarities with, that they have a common folkways, mores, and so therefore.
Thomas, let me ask you a question. Let me add on to that.
Black
ask
folks
you a question.
who are xenophiles.
Except black people, we want everybody else but us. Very perfect example. Let me ask you a question, Thomas. Australia had the idea of when they formed. They said they had the territory, part of the British Empire. And they said, we're going to create a new country inside the British Empire called the Commonwealth of Australia, right? One of the things they did was they looked at the United States, right? And they said, look, they looked at the conflict, the riots, the labor riots and everything. They found that it was fueled by divisions among white people. One, you have Irish living in the enclaves and everything, Italians and everything. And then you had blacks and you had Chinese and everything like that. And they said, we don't want that. So basically they created a white Australia policy, right? Mm-hmm. We only want white Europeans. And then when they brought the whites there, they did not allow them to settle in their little ethnic enclave. They made them assimilate and amalgamate into one community. Mm-hmm. And they said, because we're similar in aesthetics and race and everything. And what they said was, that will protect us because the white people have a certain standard of living that they could not compete. If you got people coming over here who will live 20 to 1 house and work for a tenth of what the white person worked for, the white family will never have a chance. So they did that, and they barred Asian labor and blacks and Indians from coming to Australia, and for 2 generations they was able to build a nation.
Remember, they eradicated the whole race of people that were there. The Aborigines.
Yeah, and the Aborigines. And they got rid of the Aborigines.
It's straight genocide. It wasn't like, we just going to ship them off. No, straight genocide.
They killed them. They wiped them out. They white. So, if you weren't white, they didn't want you to come there. Yo,
Carla.
Yo.
I want to touch on something that Thomas brought up, and I want to ask just. It's kind of a rhetorical question, but I want to ask everybody that's on the line. What type of society are you going to have when you have xenophiles who love everything that don't look like them and xenophobes who can't stand things that don't look like them living together?
Yeah.
And then you have America.
That's what you have with America. Black people are trying to get out of being black. White people are trying to preserve being white, So is it no wonder that it's not the white man got his foot on our neck. We keep getting on our knees and putting his foot on our neck for him.